Hi everyone, welcome to something a bit different today. You've worked so hard on your suspense unit that I thought we'll have a bit of a light-hearted lesson today. Something a bit fun, something a bit different to finish off the week, because obviously tomorrow is Screen-Free Friday, so this is the last English lesson of the week with me. So, what are we going to be doing today? Well, we're going to be looking at The World's Worst Children by David Walliams. And the bit at the bottom is, how bad will yours be? Because yes, today you are going to design your own world's worst child. I'm sure you can manage it. Okay, let's get started. Designing a character would be a title if you had a book to write it in. So today you're going to read some extracts from The World's Worst Children, or rather, I am, by David Walliams. Look at some of the features of his writing, and you're going to use that to design your own world's worst child ready to enter into the book. So, we're going to read a couple of chapters. We're going to read one of the examples from his first book, World's Worst Children 1, and then one from his second book, World's Worst Children 2. Now, I do love these books. I quite like reading them in class. So, we're going to go on to the first one, and I'm going to put it into... Oh, I've disappeared. I won't do that. I'll do it into that one. Okay, so World's Worst Children. And the first one we're going to look at is Dribbling Drew. Dribbling Drew. Once upon a time there was a boy named Drew. Drew dribbled a lot. This wasn't just normal everyday dribbling. The odd gobble and gob gloop running down your chin. Oh no, this was dribbling on an industrial scale. Here was a boy who could dribble litre upon litre of dribble a day. Now you may wonder why Dribbling Drew dribbled so much. Well, it was because he was an incredibly lazy individual. If he could, he would sleep 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I know some of you are like that. I am as well. And as Drew snoozed, he drooled. Zzz, plop, went the drool as it landed on the floor. On school mornings, the boy would have to be dragged out of bed by his feet. If he had his way, Drew would be wheeled to school every morning in his bed, and as soon as he arrived at school, he would go straight back to sleep. Zzz, plop, zzz, plop. Drew liked nothing more than having a nice long snooze during his lessons. He had even been known to take a sleeping bag into school, don't get any ideas. That way he could doze through every single subject. PE was a hard one to sleep through, but Drew found a way. For example, during football matches, he would ask to be in goal and then climb up onto the net to have a nap. If any of the kids had scored a goal, he would moan if they celebrated too loudly and woke him up. Because Drew slept through every lesson, he always found himself bottom of the class. When Drew snoozed in lessons, he would dribble all over his desk. Zzz, plop, zzz, plop, zzz, plop. The dribble would trickle down to the floor, where a large puddle of drool would collect. If the lesson was dreaded double history, the dribble would end up as something of a pool. No one knew quite what was in Drew's dribble. It was transparent like water, but thick and sticky like glue. One time, his history teacher, Miss Past, ran over to Drew's desk to shout at him for falling asleep in class again. The unfortunate lady slipped on the dribble, shot across the floor, and flew straight out of the window. Ah! She was found upside down in a nearby hedgerow with her tweed skirt over her head, her big frilly knickers flapping in the wind. The day our story starts, there was a school trip to the Natural History Museum. This was a wondrous place full of all sorts of treasures, from moon rock to dinosaur skeletons. The museum even housed a life-sized cast of a blue whale. As Drew's class pulled up outside the museum in the school coach, Mr. Nummings, the science teacher, handed out his dreaded worksheets. Now listen carefully, children. On these worksheets, I want you to make a list of all the exhibits you see in the museum today. Do we have to, sir? Moaned Dribbling Drew, stifling a yawn. Dozing on the coach for an hour had tired the boy out, and now he was ready for bed. A pool of drool had collected at his feet. Yes, Drew, we do have to, yelled the teacher. "And I want you to stay awake during this visit." Mr. Nummings turned back to the rest of the class. "Now, everyone, the pupil who writes down the most exhibits will come top of the class, so keep looking and listening the whole time. Right, out you get." As they walked in through the museum's giant wooden doors, all the children marvelled at the huge skeleton of a Diplodocus, which took pride place in the great hall. But Drew simply yawned. Then he broke away from his teacher and classmates and found a nice quiet place to nap. It was on top of a glass case housing a stuffed dodo, a bird that had become extinct centuries before. No one would disturb him up there. Drew climbed up using a stuffed giraffe as a ladder. He lay down and closed his eyes. Then the boy slept and slept and slept and dribbled and dribbled and dribbled. The boy could sleep almost anywhere, standing up during a rock concert, hanging upside down from a tree, even on a roller coaster as everyone around him screamed. This particular day, Drew slept for so long he was still asleep when the Natural History Museum was locked up for the night. Without anyone realising, he was still there when all the lights were turned off. All night Drew slept, and as he slept, he dribbled. Zzz, plop. Zzz, plop. Zzz, plop. Drew dribbled and dribbled and dribbled, then he dribbled some more. The spot of drool beneath him spread into a puddle. Soon it was a lake of spittle. By dawn, Drew's sea of dribble had filled the entire Natural History Museum. In the morning, Winston, the burly security guard, arrived bright and early to unlock the doors and open the museum as he did every day. However, this was no ordinary day. The first thing Winston noticed was a transparent fluid oozing underneath the doors. "That's very strange," he thought out loud. "Maybe one of the daft old professors has left the tap running." Next, the security guard dipped the toe of his boot into the liquid and realised it couldn't be water from a leaky pipe. Whatever this was, it was thick and sticky. Worried that the museum might have been flooded, Winston flung open the giant wooden doors as fast as he could. Nothing could have prepared Winston for what happened next. Whoosh! A tidal wave of drool washed him clean off his feet, and he found himself travelling at speed down the street. "Ah!" the big man screamed like a baby. Closely behind the security guard floated some of the biggest exhibits from the museum. A stuffed polar bear, the life-size cast of a blue whale, even the Diplodocus skeleton. They all bobbled along the streets of London on this rushing river of dribble. Atop the glass case that housed the dodo was Drew. In all the commotion, he had finally woken up from his long sleep. As he floated down the road, the flood of his own spittle destroyed everything in its path. Cars, lorries, and even buses were swept off the ground and began bobbling along the colossal ooze of drool. Drew leaped off the glass case onto the roof of a nearby building. From the safe place he watched more of the exhibits from the museum pass by. The boy reached into his blazer pocket. He still had the worksheet his teacher, Mr. Nummings, had given him at the start of the school trip. Drew made a note of everything he saw. Every single exhibit from the museum floated past, and he wrote them all down. Mars rock, a Neanderthal skull, a marble statue of Charles Darwin, a giant squid, a stuffed vulture, an earthquake machine, a model T-Rex. The list went on and on. A seahorse pickled in a jar, a model volcano, a fossil of a prehistoric fish, a spacesuit, a stuffed giraffe, an old lady clinging onto a shopper. Hang on, that's a real old lady. A model of a woolly mammoth. To his credit, Dribbling Drew spent hours listing everything he saw as the gushing river of drool swept all the museum's precious exhibits out to sea. The next day in class, Drew proudly handed in his worksheet to Mr. Nummings. Aside from a few spots of dribble, it was perfect. After looking through all of his pupils' work, the science teacher announced the result. "I can reveal the winner with 100% is Drew," said Mr. Nummings. The boy was top of the class for the first time in his life. Before he was promptly expelled. As punishment for destroying everything in the Natural History Museum, Drew was put to work there. His job was to reassemble the Diplodocus skeleton that had been recovered from the bottom of the sea. He was not to stop until the giant jigsaw was finished. Dribbling Drew didn't get any sleep for the next 10 years. And that is the end of that. Okay, I'm going to post the link to the other story on Seesaw with the Work so you can have a read of it. Okay, but I'm going to get back on now so you can start to plan your own character. These are all free to look at, they're just internet links. It's the first chapter from each one. So, let's get started with planning your own. Okay. We're now going to have a look at one of these characters. Well, we're going to have a look at Dribbling Drew, and we're going to analyse the different features. So we're going to see what happens, and you're going to use that to then plan your own character. So we've got Dribbling Drew here, picture in the middle, and this is the sort of sheet you're going to use when you're planning your character today. Of course, if you want to just draw a character and label around it, that's absolutely fine. So, the first box we're looking at up here is how does my character look? Now, what can we say? Well, he's got curly black hair. What else can we say? So he's wearing, well, he's a schoolboy, so he's wearing school uniform. Have we got anything about clothes anywhere else before I fill it in this box? Nope, so we've got school uniform. And you might decide to have yours. If you're setting it in a school, if you're thinking your character's in a school, then that would be sensible. What else? Well, we can see he dribbles a lot, doesn't he? I don't know. That's all I can really say. And it doesn't really matter, to be honest, what he looks like. How does the character move? Well, he's Dribbling Drew. He's very lazy. So I'm going to guess he moves quite slowly. Maybe yours will too. Or maybe if your character's quite hyperactive, he maybe moves really quickly. Slowly, barely at all. He spends most of his time asleep. Character's personality. So we know he's very lazy. And that's something you're going to need to decide. Is your character lazy? Is he angry? Lots of different decisions to make. He's quite lazy. What else do we know about him? He gets bored quite easily. Things my character likes, well, sleeping. What else does Drew like? He likes sleeping, drooling, obviously, and getting out of doing work. Characters, friends and family, well, we don't know really much about them. We just know about a couple of the teachers. That's all we really know. We don't know any about his friends, and that's absolutely fine. So we know about a couple of his teachers. And we know about the security guard. Where does character live? Well, he's going to the Natural History Museum, so we're going to assume London, because that's where that is. Character's hobbies. Sleeping. Things my character doesn't like. Being awake. Doing work. Sounding more and more familiar. I'm joking. I hope I'm joking. Okay. So you now need to get the chance, or you need to think about your character. So we're going to have a think about the different bits you need to plan. So the first thing you need to decide is what is your character going to look like? And I've given you some things to think about here. Now, you're also going to need a name, of course, but you might want to decide your name later. Okay, so I've got my character in my head, and I'm going to talk you through how I would plan. So the first thing I think about is the height. So my character is going to be very tall. Size and weight. So I'm going to say that they're quite thin. Their hair, I'm going to say that they have scruffy brown hair that goes over his eyes. There we go. What they wear. Well, I'm thinking about what my character's going to be like. And I'm going to say that he is... Well, it's going to be related to sport that he does. Is what I'm thinking of my character. So I'm going to say he wears sportswear. So maybe that's football kits, etc. Any distinctive features? He's going to have. What can I decide? He is going to have. Oh, two different coloured eyes. There we go. One eye's one colour, one eye's the other. Two different coloured eyes. Okay, so I want you to pause the video now and make some notes on what your character's going to look like. Feel free to use my example. Have a look at the questions down the side there to help you. Make a couple of notes, bullet point it. Don't need to be full sentences. I've just written words and sort of phrases. You could do the same. Okay, moving on to the next one. So we're now going to think about what do they do that makes them one of the world's worst children. And this is the most important bit. So Dribbling Drew is in the book because he dribbles a lot and he sleeps a lot. And then he destroyed the Natural History Museum. What is yours going to do? Well, here's some examples you could have. You could have never washes. They could be like Stinky Steve. Only eats sweets. Horrible to their siblings. Picks their nose all the time. Runs away all the time. You know, as soon as anything happens, off they run. Shrieks. They shriek all the time. Never looks up from their phone. Just wander around like this. I just keep saying things that you're probably going, oh, that's me. It's not intentional, I promise. Okay, my example. Now, my world's worst child is going to be a world's worst child because he is a horrendously bad sore loser. So any game, any competition, if he loses, even if he comes second, hates it and throws a massive tantrum. Even if he, I don't know, even if he doesn't get 100% on a test, tantrum. So that's what makes him a world's worst child. And I'm going to say that now, if you notice it with Dribbling Drew, we've got alliteration, DD, Dribbling Drew. So I'm going to say that my character, and I'm only deciding this now, I'm going to say that my character, now I've got to think of a name that isn't in year 6, otherwise you're going to think it's aimed at you, and I promise you it isn't. I'm going to say mine is, I don't think we've got one of these. I don't know of any. I'm going to say that my character is called Sore Loser Sam. Don't have any Sams that I know of in year 6. I'm off the hook, hopefully. So that's my character. Okay. Of course, you could name the character after you if you wanted to. You could do it about yourself if you wanted to. Now I move. So, sorry. Pause the video. Go and plan what makes your child the world's worst child. Off you go. Okay. What they do and don't like. Now you could think about foods, smells, certain people, family members. Maybe they really don't like their younger sister, for example. Animals, rules. Maybe they hate rules. Tidiness, if they're really messy. Well, mine is Sore Loser Sam. Now, Sore Loser Sam hates his older brother. So I'm going to say plus and minus. Minus for don't like. So he doesn't like his older brother. Why doesn't he like his older brother? Because his older brother always beats him at games. So he hates him. PlayStation, hates him. Always wins. What sort of things does he like? Well, he loves winning. He likes it when other people cry because they've lost. Yes, he's that sort of person. What does he like when others cry? What doesn't he like? What else doesn't he? Well, he certainly doesn't like losing. He hates losing. He doesn't like it when anyone else wins, even if he's not taken part in the competition himself. He thinks he should win everything. Okay, so that's a couple of examples. So go and have a little plan. What does your character like? What don't they like? And now it's your turn. So I'll show you the sheet that's going to be on the seesaw. I've planned it with you, so hopefully you've got some ideas. But the sheet that is going to be on the seesaw looks a little bit like this. So let me zoom it out so you can see it. Now it's the one that we did where we were looking at dribbling Drew. Now there's two options here. This sheet will be on seesaw, and you can fill in each of the boxes and then draw the character in the middle if you want to. You don't have to draw it. I know some of you wouldn't want to, and that's fine. And then fill in the boxes. You're definitely going to fill in the boxes on either side to plan your character. But if you want to do something different in the middle, that's cool. If, however, you want to just make a poster about your world's worst child where you draw them in the middle and then just write details, like annotating them off of there, that would be great. We'd love to see it. Take a photo, upload it to Seesaw. As long as you have designed your world's worst child and we see some evidence of it, that's what we're after. Okay? Right. Go off, enjoy creating your character, show it to your parents, see if they think it's you. For now, it's been lovely to speak to you again, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.